Look, I thought it was just kind of a banana republic kind of thing, and you know, I don't like it. I think it's inappropriate. It was obviously done in a retaliatory way. There's been a continual sort of tearing down of institutions, causing Americans to lose faith in institutions instead of building them up.
Welcome back to Harvard. That was Senator Bob Corker of Tennessee, responding to President Trump's decision yesterday to revoke former CIA Director John Brennan's security clearance. Senator Corker, who's retiring, seems to be the lone Republican out there speaking out about it. Other Republicans are siding with Trump on this, even after he admitted that the true reason behind the move was Brennan's involvement in the Russian investigation.
Mr. Brennan has gone way over the line, in my view, and I think restricting his clearance, pulling his clearance makes sense to me.
It's about time that he did take away that, because Brennan has been very outspoken for a guy that was dealing in national security interests as thoroughly as he was.
Brennan has called the president treasonous. He's called him all kinds of names. Just continue to be able to push it, and the president just pushed back.
Profiles encourage all of them. The Washington Post is reporting tonight that President Trump has told advisors he's eager to strip more security clearances as part of an escalating attack against those who have criticized him or played a role in the probe of alleged Russian interference in the 2016 election. For more, I'm joined by the Hardball panel tonight. Ayesha Rascoe is a White House reporter for NPR. George F. Will, of course, is a syndicated columnist. And Jason Johnson is a politics editor he is the editor for TheRoot.com. What do you make of this, Ayesha? The failure, it reminds me often of A Man for All Seasons, not much VIII to King. Well, what king was that?
Henry VIII.
Henry VIII.
Well,
the big guy.
Republicans in Congress, the only Republican who spoke out, you mentioned, is Corker, and he's retiring. He's not up for re-election. I think
Flake occasionally shows up.
Yes, sometimes. But, you know, for those Republicans who are going to be up for election again, they look at it, I guess, and they have decided that if they go against Trump, then they lose their base, because their base is happy with Trump. Now, it is kind of short-sighted, because when you have a Democrat in the White House, and they start pulling clearances from Republicans or from people from the Trump administration, I'm sure that will make them very upset.
What do you make of it, George?
Partly, I think it's outrage fatigue. People are just tired of being outraged. Corker's right. Let's stipulate that, in fact, this was a small, meanly motivated decision. On the other hand, no one has, to use the phrase you used earlier in the program, silenced Mr. Brennan. He is a Niagara of words, always has been, always will be. Right. If he wants to go on being the gladiator of many green rooms, he can. His speech has not been in any way compromised. If you lose a security clearance, if you lose income, if you lose friends, if you lose prestige from exercising freedom of speech, you still have freedom of speech.
Jason, the role of the president is to be head of the executive branch and to be, you know, wise steward and a fair steward. Is he being one?
No. And this is for purely security purposes, right? If he does not have access, it may be more difficult to draw upon Brennan's advice in future security problems. And here's where I think it's really problematic when it comes to Republicans. This is where they decide that they're like, yes, you know, this person should be punished. They've never said anything about Comey. They've never said about other issues. They have no problem with the president sort of attacking and abusing any of his government critics. If Donald Trump wanted to take away a security clearance because the Senate Intelligence Committee found that they were involved in torture and lying back when he was at the CIA, I would have no problem with that. But instead, this is a venal attack because he doesn't like a critic.
Well, meanwhile, former White House chief strategist, he really was, Steve Bannon, has a new message for Republican voters coming up in November. Support your local Republican candidate or risk seeing President Trump impeached. Steve Bannon recently announced the formation of a new political group focused on the midterms. In an interview with Politico, Bannon said, "It's very simple to me. This is a referendum on Trump, up or down vote on impeachment. This other side, they're very motivated. And they're motivated for one thing. They want to impeach Donald Trump." George, your assessment of that?
Well, Mr. Bannon is supposed to be the Metternich of our time, as a cunning thinker, and he says if Republicans don't turn out, Republican candidates will suffer. Duh. I mean, this was not a blazing insight.
But he's racing to the defense of the guy who canned him, Ayesha.
Well, he wants to, I would guess that he probably wants to get back in his good graces and back into the good graces of some part of the Republican establishment, because he's kind of on the outs right now. So this may be his way of kind of, and Trump is known to be forgiving to people who come back, you know, to his side. Yes.
It's horrible strategy. I mean, this doesn't work for the Democrats either, mind you. If the Democrats run saying, hey, get us in office, we can impeach Trump, that's not going to galvanize
Pelosi's been
people.
careful about that.
Exactly.
I think even Jerry Nadler's been careful about that. About to be chairman of the Judiciary Committee. They don't want to look too hungry for this thing.
Exactly. Impeachment is not a winning strategy for either side. Steve Bannon should know better.
Well, finally, President Trump's former campaign manager, Corey Lewandowski, was asked if Trump, as a billionaire, can relate to the average guy, the everyday lives, in fact, of Americans. Here was Lewandowski's response. Let's watch that.
He loves to drive. And I shouldn't tell the story because I'll get in trouble, but I remember he was driving his Rolls Royce from New York City one day up to the golf course in Bedminster. This is prior to Secret Service, and we're on the campaign. And I remember because he was talking to me on the telephone. And guess what happened, right? When you're in New York and you're on your telephone, you're driving a Rolls Royce up to New Jersey, you get stopped, right? And so I remember he's like, hey, Corey, I'm going to let you guys just pull over.
Well, there's Corey Lewandowski using the signal for, I guess, a car phone. But Jason, I don't know. I've always wondered that, but I think I get it. How does Trump, a man of enormous means, who grew up with enormous means, appeal to Joe Sixpack? He apparently does, electorally, so it doesn't matter if he drives around. By the way, they don't make Rolls Royces here.
Right. Yes.
This isn't part of making America great.
I've always argued that in America, we love the right kind of rich guy. The kind of rich guy who makes things that we can touch, we can feel. John Schnatter, Pizza Hut, or Bill Gates computers.
We don't like money guys.
Yeah, we don't like money guys. We don't like Mitt Romney, right? We like the guy who
when
makes
we retire, we save our money. We do want somebody to make money with our money. We do.
Well, yeah, if you have the money when you're there. But yeah, you know, this Trump is aspirational for people. They want to grow up and be that kind of guy, and so this works for a certain segment of the population. It's certainly smarter than him running around like Mitt Romney used to do and say, yeah, I like NASCAR because some of my friends own NASCAR teams.
Mitt would say, I like sport.
And Trump talks like regular people.
I agree. Yeah. George, your theory about this guy who has this Sinatra-like appeal to Joe regular?
I don't think he's trying to appeal to these people. The way to understand him is he is the revenge of West Egg against East Egg, if you remember your Gatsby.
Crass against the elite.
The nouveau riche looking across the Sound at the green light on Daisy's dock, the broad green lines of old money. That's what this is about.
So you would call Donald Trump a romantic? Anyway, I'm curious about, let me go back to this thing here with the security thing. And pettiness works. I always think of Trump as a grown-up 8-year-old. That he likes pretty women, he likes money, he likes big, gorgeous cars and splashy models and supermodels. He likes everything an 8-year-old kid would want if he had a lot of money and was a grown-up, George. He doesn't. It's not complicated.
Well, he's not the first, in a sense. When Teddy Roosevelt's best friend was a man named Cecil Spring Rice, a British diplomat. And when people would come to Washington wanting to tell us about the president, he said, "You have to understand the president, Teddy Roosevelt, is 8 years old." Now, he was an ebullient, childish,
bully,
wonderful guy in many ways. Just the man you'd want to sit next to at dinner. Trump's 8 years old in a different way.
Yeah, I don't think he belongs on Mount Rushmore. Thank you, George.
Yes.
No, he's not up there, bully. He didn't lead any charges up San Juan Hill that I remember. Ayesha Rascoe, thank you. George Will and Jason Johnson. Up next, a tribute to Aretha Franklin.